Hello and welcome to Oxford Analytica's weekly briefings. I'm here today with Senior Analyst for Eastern Europe, Mike Taylor, who will be discussing the recent events in Turkey. Since May 31st, the country has been in the throes of an important political crisis. We've seen widespread mass protests, and yet the government has been either heavy-handed or intransigent. This raises serious questions about Erdogan's own political legacy, the prospects for Turkey's economy, and possibility of joining the EU someday. So Mike, thank you very much for joining us. What do you think is going to happen in the next few weeks? Are you expecting the government to soften its stance a little?
No, I don't think it will. I think Erdogan's character is such. He's sort of an all-powerful leader of the nation. And he's reinforced in this belief by having a very successful last election, which he got 50% of the vote. And he has this strong bond with his party members and the constituency out in the countryside, who reinforce him the idea that he is a democratic leader and he represents a very strong strand of Turkish opinion. And the demonstrators can be dismissed, and he's dismissed them himself in several ways. So the problem internally is that he's not really engaging with the demonstrators. But he does see himself as being very much, he's right.
Yeah, but what kind of difficulties do you think he will face? Because now protesters are becoming more creative about how they protest. So if somebody is standing silently on Taksim Square, it is very hard to allow the police to come crashing down.
Yes, they are being very inventive in their tactics. And but you know, his rhetoric has been so unfortunate, to use a mild term. I mean, he was talking about he's already been using the police, he's talking about using the gendarmerie, sort of militarized police, and also even the army as a backup force. And then he's surprised when people say he's an authoritarian. This is a very authoritarian way of dealing with dissent. I think at the moment there's a standoff. They've kicked it into touch by saying, well, we're going to wait for a court decision on the original point at issue, which was what to do about this park. So that's going to go to a court decision, and nobody will do anything until that comes back, and then possibly go to a referendum. But a referendum, I think, in Istanbul, which he might well lose, I'd have thought. You couldn't say. But anyway, the thing should now die down. What's going to happen next is there are two things happening. There are local elections in Turkey next March. And there's also a possible change to the constitution. Now, he was shaping up to turn Turkey from being a sort of parliamentary-based system to a presidential system where the president is elected and has a lot of power. The current president is basically the head of state, a sort of ceremonial position. Now, Erdogan would like to change the system to be a presidential system, and he would be president. Now, he's really shot himself in the foot in that, because he set against himself a whole lot of broad coalition of dissent, all from across the spectrum, and he's going to have trouble getting elected president, I think.
How do you think this will affect the economy?
The economy is going to a bit of a bad patch anyway, which might be a bit unfortunate again for Erdogan, because up until now he's been the man who's tied in with a run of about a decade of success. In which Turkey's nominal dollar GDP has tripled, and everybody obviously has got more prosperous, and people have got employment. It may be that they're going through a soft patch at the moment, but it's not necessarily his fault. Though the trouble is, this sort of disruption obviously does turn off investors, and they are dependent on short-term capital flows. And a lot of that money seems to be leaving Turkey, because the lira had a very weak point today. Against the dollar. So they have this persistent current account deficit, which is largely due to energy imports. So they're reliant on capital inflows to keep their balance of payments in balance. And this is really bad news for that.
So sort of looking a few years down the line, what will this do for Turkey's desire to be a member of the EU one day?
Well, again, there are kind of underlying problems that this makes worse. Because as soon as you get sort of accusations of police heavy-handedness and not dealing with demonstrators in a democratic fashion, then people in the EU start getting concerned. And there's I think there's a chapter in the negotiations going to be opened quite soon. Germany and Netherlands have threatened to veto opening the next chapter. And there could be a kind of, again, a standoff between the EU and Turkey, with Turkey's irritated anyway by its terrible lack of success in approaching European membership. It's been in the waiting room for so long, and the longer you keep people waiting, hope deferred has a tendency to turn sour. And so Turks may turn around and say, well, they don't want us in because we're Muslim. We don't want to be in anyway. So there could be a problem there. And obviously, from the popular point of view, if Erdogan is seen standing up to what foreign critics, that's what he would want to do, because that plays very well with his constituency.
Yeah, so he's sort of almost expecting a mixed legacy, where on the one hand he's associated with authoritarian policies and an authoritarian style of management, and yet at the same time he may be able to reinvent himself as somebody who stands up to foreign critics.
Exactly, but it's all kind of going in the wrong direction, really. I mean, Turkey's a very complicated country. I mean, people think that Ataturk modernised Turkey. To some extent he did, but there was always a long undercurrent of people who didn't sign up to this view of Turkey, of a secularised state. They are the people who support Erdogan now. So the problem with Turkey, I see, is very polarised, almost equally between people who support Erdogan and people who oppose him, because they fear what he will do to their lives.
Interesting times ahead. Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see you next week.